restart.
Okay. All right, so all the commissioners are here, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the July meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Share my screen.
I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Next is roll call.
Do I do that?
Yeah, go ahead and do that, please.
Okay. Albrecht,
Here, Salem County, actually. What else? I just totally had a brain freeze. I'm currently in Salem County, actually.
okay. Buckley,
Here, Union Township, Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Darren,
Here, Union Township, Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Fuller,
Present, Union Township, Isabella County.
LaBelle,
Here, Union Township, Michigan, Isabella County.
Lapp,
Here, Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
Shingles,
Union Township, Isabella County.
Squatrito,
I'm here. I'm in the city of Mount Pleasant in Isabella County.
Thering,
Here, Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item is approval of the agenda for tonight. It was suggested earlier today that since we only have we have some carryover business from last month, and that's the only those are the only items other than the new business item, which is the zoning ordinance, which is likely to take a while. So there was a suggestion made that we entertain a motion to move the other business items in 9 up to above 8, just so those folks don't have to wait around as long. So I'd entertain a motion to do that if it's anyone's pleasure to do that.
I'll make the motion to move other business, item A and B, ahead of new business.
Or
So the motion was made by Fuller, was seconded by LaBelle to essentially switch 8 and 9 in the agenda. Are there any other comments or anything else that anyone's aware of that needs to be on tonight's agenda? Commissioner Lapp?
Under number 6, Cody updates from the Board of Trustees. My understanding is Lisa Cody has resigned. So do we have a Board of Trustees representative any longer?
Yeah.
Oh, hearing, right. So
Yes.
shouldn't that be changed then to James's name?
Sorry about that. I will get that changed.
Okay. Any other issues related to tonight's agenda? So essentially, I'm going to take Alex's motion as a motion to approve tonight's agenda with the switching of items 8 and 9. I assume that the seconder agrees with that. So all in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please either say yes or give some sort of hand signal that's recognizable.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Okay, I see our motion carried, so our agenda is approved. Next item, we last met on June 15th of last month. That was our regular meeting, so we have minutes from the June meeting. So the next item is the approval of the June minutes. Are there any items related to the June minutes? Commissioner LaBelle.
Yeah, just on page 4 of 5, it looked like I was at a roll call vote for a couple things there when I wasn't present. So maybe just remove me from that vote.
Yeah, I know. I caught that too. That should actually be lap, I believe.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, other than that, that's the only thing that I caught.
So we have on page 4, the roll call votes for items C and D should have lap instead of LaBelle. I found that there were not roll call votes for items E and F, and I couldn't remember whether we did have roll call votes for those or not. Does anyone happen to remember? I've been in the habit of doing roll call votes for all business items.
I thought we voted on those.
I know we must have voted, but as a roll, does anybody remember whether it was a roll call or not?
It was a roll call vote, and
Okay.
yes, that motion is missing for item E, and should be mentioned as same for item F. Actually, I apologize. No, item F was not a roll call vote. You can have a voice vote to postpone.
Hmm.
So that would have been a voice vote. But item E, yes, should have been noted as a roll call vote.
Okay. Well, even though it could have been a roll call or a voice vote, that doesn't necessarily mean I did it that way. So I guess I would appreciate someone, if they can, going back and taking a quick look at the video. Just so we get it right.
Was that E you said that we're looking back at?
Both E and F. Let's see. Oh, the motions are stated. The motion was on the previous page. The question on both is whether it doesn't indicate what happened to the motion. So either there should be a roll call vote if one was made, or if it was a voice vote, then it should indicate that it carried. So I'm a little bit unsure of what to do here. Those are kind of substantive changes. I mean, one option is to postpone the approval until next month. Another is to approve them conditionally with those changes. I guess I'm okay with either. I would be willing to take a quick look at them to verify, or the secretary could do that. Any thoughts?
I think I would make a motion to postpone approval of the minutes till corrected.
Is there a second for that motion?
I support.
Okay, so motion by Fuller with a second by Thering to postpone approval of those minutes until corrections have been made. So most likely that would be at our August meeting. Any further discussion? All right, so we'll do a voice vote for this. So all in favor, please say aye and/or hand signal.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? I see none opposed, so I'll declare that motion approved.
And actually, I'm glad you took that step, because I'm looking at the draft minutes. It looks like the wrong file may have been tucked into the packet, because I'm looking at draft minutes that have those elements in it. So yeah, I'm glad you postponed that action. We'll get the corrected version to you for next month.
All right, okay. So the next item is correspondence, board reports, and presentations. So Commissioner Thering, anything to report from the Board of Trustees?
Really, the only thing, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the planning commission, and the board of trustees as of today are planning on having their first in-person meeting on July 28th. I don't know how that affects the rest of us, but that's really all that I have to report at this time.
That's going to be in the township hall in the usual
Yep.
location?
Yep.
Okay, well, we might want to, depending on time and so on, towards the end of our meeting, we might want to discuss that. Any questions for Commissioner Thering, Board of Trustees related matters? Okay. Commissioner Buckley, Zoning Board of Appeals.
It would seem that I'm either a curse or a blessing for being added to the ZBA, because there was nothing in July, and I can tell you right now that there is, the August meeting has been canceled due to a lack of agenda items as well.
Good thing.
Yeah, no, it's not a bad thing. Any questions for Ryan? Okay, seeing none. Darren, updates from sidewalks and pathways?
There are no updates at this time.
Okay, any questions for Mike? Okay, any other reports and or presentations or correspondence that's not related to agenda items? Okay, thank you. So next is public comment. So this public comment, as is our tradition towards the beginning of our meeting, is for items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if anyone has a public comment they'd like to offer on any item that's not on our agenda tonight, hit your raise hand button, make your desire known. We'll facilitate your ability to address the commission. We ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So general public comment is open at 7:13.
We have one person that's telephoning in, and so for a telephone attendee, you can use the star and then the 9 button. Star 9 will raise your hand.
I think most of the attendees are here for agenda items. Obviously, I don't know about the one that's called in, but I'm not seeing any indication. So, all right, well, we'll go ahead and close the public comment, still at 7:13. So we'll move to our business items. And so as the agenda was modified, we are now moving to other business. So this is the taking back up the special use permit application for the Christ Filling Station, PSUP 21-02. And so we'll start with updates from staff and applicant. So Rodney, anything you want to point to? We have our report, obviously, but
I'll just have a few things. In your packet, you have a item of correspondence from Kathy Hendershot from the 6th of the month that addressed this particular item. In addition, you received via email a letter that we received via email from Ron Campbell, who lives on Bud Street, and had some comments on this item as well. And then before I bring over the applicants, which I will do in just a moment, I want to make sure that they heard this. I didn't want to have them transferring while I was talking about this. We received initially a phone inquiry about postponing this item, and then received a written request to postpone this item yesterday. We did have staff did have a conversation with the applicant, and in the end, they did make the decision to proceed forward. Just read from the email that I received this morning. After discussing this with my client, this is Joseph Quant, who's here tonight. after discussing this with my client, they are reluctantly in parentheses, willing to move forward with consideration of the special use permit and preliminary site plan approval at tonight's planning commission meeting. And that's with an understanding that if questions arise in the site plan that cannot be answered, because the issue is, I apologize, I should have said this. The issue is that their engineer, Craig Richardson, is not able to be here tonight. He may be the gentleman on the phone. I'll bring him over, but he wasn't likely to be here. And so they were concerned about questions coming up that they couldn't answer. And what I explained was, if you had questions that answers could not be provided tonight, that would absolutely be a reason to postpone action and request that information. So with that understanding, they were comfortable with moving the project ahead tonight for your as normal, as part of your normal application or agenda process. So you do have our updated letter report dated July the 13th. Our recommendation has not changed. Really, the only updates were related to references to the site plan that was also updated. So with that, I will go ahead and move our attendees over to panelists so that they can fully participate. If you give me just a moment. And I'm going to, the 906 phone number is, I assume, is one of our applicants. I'm going to go ahead and include them in it as well. All right, it does look like everyone's here.
Mr. Nanny, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. This is John Reck with GI Consultants.
Stanley Atanasoff.
Chris Atanasoff, Chris Doyle, the owner. All right, just want to make sure our technology is working here. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So just as a reminder to folks, we looked at this last month and there was a motion to postpone it to this meeting. And so that's why it's back before us now. And so the proposal is to build a filling station and convenience food mart up on Pickard, on the corner of Pickard and Isabella, and in the B7 zone. And that requires a special use permit. Okay, so the first item is the special use permit application. So again, we have our report from township staff. So without objection, I will open it to the applicant if there's anything you'd like to say by way of preliminary remarks or introduction before we move into our deliberation. And of course,
Sure.
you'll stand for questions as well.
Great. Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. This is Joe Quant. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I'm currently in Traverse City at my Traverse City office, but we also have an office on Jens Way in Union Township. Appreciate the commission's opportunity, or the opportunity to speak to the commission this evening about the application. As you know, when this was in front of the commission last month, there were a few areas of concern that were articulated by the commission, with respect to screening, traffic, and some other issues. I think that those have all been addressed by the revised site plan. As you can tell, there has been revisions that address or more clearly delineate the structures that will be utilized for screening. I know that there was questions regarding traffic control. As you know, the traffic control structures place the ingress and egress points to this site as far to the distant portions of the site as can be reasonably, or actually practically accomplished with all other zoning required considerations in mind. The design does include best engineering practices, and we think that it reasonably controls the site issues there. With respect to the other items that were articulated of concern, one was consistency with the master plan. As you're probably already aware, the master plan consistency is assured as the community commercial zone or community commercial plan area is stated to accommodate, and it uses the quote, the widest variety of retail and service businesses. It also specifically references auto service as one of those specifically enumerated business items or business uses that can and should be accommodated through that master plan area. And then also most telling is the last sentence, which states locations for this district are based on arterial road frontage and need for high traffic volumes. And that's a quote directly from that section of the master plan. So I think that clearly this site fits all of those characteristic criteria. It may not be what somebody had specifically in mind when they were looking at the development of the master plan, but clearly when you look at the criteria that the master plan is meant to accomplish, it certainly meets all of those in spades. And then the third issue that was brought up was one that, and this is specifically why we were engaged on this, was concerns about general competition issues. That, well, we already have too many gas stations, and gee, this isn't fair to other people who are in that business along that area, and those aren't really legally, they're impermissible because they're not specific elements for consideration under your ordinance for approval. So I'd like to, if possible, dissuade that discussion. Although I would make a objective observation, which is that the food mart, the comprehensive nature of this food mart is so much different than any of the other gas stations that are in the area that were specifically mentioned as being potentially impacted. This is a facility that has over 5,000 different food items that are available. It's much broader than what you would normally consider available at this type of operation. So I think it does fill a community need that is well beyond just what you typically would find in a typical fueling station environment. So I think that's hopefully addresses it. Those were really the only issues in the minutes that were specifically enumerated as potentially areas of concern. Certainly, I'd be happy to entertain any questions. And also, I would like to thank Rodney and Peter for clarifying, our issues of concern. I had originally asked that the meeting be postponed, and I was not trying to delay or otherwise impair your ability to make an expeditious decision. I was only concerned because I knew Craig wasn't going to be available, and Craig's the developer of the site plan. I'm glad to hear that Craig has one of his colleagues available to answer any site plan questions, but that was the only reason why I was looking to try to postpone this, was just because if you're going to ask me a detailed site plan question, I was not really equipped to provide those types of answers. So again, thank you to Rodney and Peter for your consideration in that regard.
Okay, thank you. So the matters before us, and the applicant's representatives are here, so it's open for questions and discussion by commissioners. Commissioner LaBelle.
Oh, you're muted, Doug.
Sorry about that. Yeah, just looking over the site plan, I didn't see anything in regards to lighting. Did I miss something there? Or?
Lighting is a final site plan item that will be coming in the when you see the site plan again.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Fuller.
Yeah, originally we had some concerns with traffic. And I believe the original design, I don't have the original design. Would have been nice if they would have clouded what they changed so we could see. But it looks like they've got approved for a more than a right in, right out off of Pickard. And I'm wondering if I'm correct on that.
The site plan does show a left-hand turn in. We have not seen the documentation from MDOT yet related to this, but that documentation is normally a final site plan detail. So it really will be up to MDOT to decide whether this site is able to have a left-hand turn in off of Pickard Road.
There is a specifically designated on sheet 3. You can see that there's an only right turn out on Pickard.
Right, and I believe the right in, right out added to some of the concern, as anybody coming from the east would have to turn down Isabella in order to enter the site from the original site plan we saw.
Certainly, this does show a left-hand turn arrow coming in off of Pickard Road. Ultimately, we'll have to verify that with the documentation from MDOT, but the site plan does show that they can make a left-hand turn off of Pickard Road. It is kind of close to the intersection, so if there were a number of cars in the left-hand turn lane, they wouldn't be able to make that turn.
Yeah, just so that we're clear, these plans do utilize the best engineered practices requirements of MDOT's road design and execution standards.
The turn's about 230-ish feet beyond the intersection, to the west of the intersection. And that stretch of Pickard has a dedicated turn lane, correct?
It does, yes.
Yeah.
So that distance certainly would allow 9 or 10 cars to stack up in that left-hand turn lane.
Yeah. I mean, they'd have to be offering 99-cent gas, or I saw in the photographs the $9.99 bottle of vodka is pretty popular in Wisconsin, but that's probably a Wisconsin thing. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Lapp.
I was one of the naysayers last month because I also agree that I think we have a lot of gas stations. But on the other hand, this is a business wanting to move into the township, and I think we have to take that for what it is. And if we don't have legitimate or pressing reasons to not approve this, I think this answers a number of the issues that we raised last month, other than the fact that it's a gas station, which we can't do anything about. That's what it is, as well as a convenience mart. I do appreciate that I see the bike rack has been added. And I think this plan seems to be a little more, I don't know if the entrance to Isabella moved further south or not, but it looks like it at least is staggered away from the Burger King entrance. So that might help a little bit with traffic on Isabella.
Commissioner Buckley.
I'm just curious if we're moving into a deliberation stage yet, or if this is just questions for the applicant here.
I think we're still in question. I mean, they're still in the room, so.
Sure. Okay.
I'm still seeking questions from folks.
I am curious from the applicant. I know there's a suggestion that there is some sort of substantially different types of food products that are available at the store. Are there any real, when I look at pictures, all I see is what I would see in every food shop, every gas station I walked into. So I'm curious as to what I might be missing in terms of what's actually being offered that is not available at any of the other dozen gas stations I walk into in Mount Pleasant.
I don't think that I can speak to specific menu items. All I can, it's been brought to my attention that this is an operation that's much, if you've been to a Christ station, like maybe up in the UP, they're just enormous. I mean, they've got everything from bread, yogurt, all kinds of different grocery items that you just don't typically find in your convenience store, where your universe of options is limited to, what flavor potato chips you want or what brand of soft drink do you want. So while I can't speak to any, item that is specific, I can say that they have a much broader universe of options that are available, that if you were somebody who was on your way home, from work, and you didn't want to stop at a grocery store and you had like 6 or 7 items that your wife texted you that you needed to bring home, chances are you're going to find all 6 or 7 of those items, at this location.
Eggs, milk.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I think Ryan makes a good point, which is that the photographs that were supplied showed of the interior of other stores in Wisconsin and the UP or Northern Michigan didn't show those items. They showed more the traditional. In fact, the setup looked very much like the other convenience marts. So it didn't really do justice to that, but we take what you said. So
I would point out that, and I'm only going by memory, but when we did have this conversation the last time, I believe that milk and dairy products, eggs and things like that were not included. For some reason, I don't know why. I thought it was maybe like potatoes or something as a vegetable or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it seems like, and somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was not the milk and the eggs were not there.
Hey, this is Chris. Last year I sold almost 2 million pounds of potatoes. I offer 10 pounds of potatoes for $1.99. I sell fresh milk. It's brought in bi-weekly. I got egg specials, bacon. If you forget the potato chips, we have those too. So we've got we carry most items that major grocery chains carry, just in smaller numbers. And it's a good neighborhood store. Our prices are right, and we'll do a real nice job in your community. We'll be a good asset.
Thanks for that information. It seems my memory failed me from last time.
Okay, other comments and questions from commissioners? In terms of our deliberation, I believe we did go down the actual list of criteria for a special use permit last time. I'll just ask my fellow commissioners, do you want to go down that list again as a part of our deliberations, or do you want to have a more general discussion? Let it be a more general discussion like we're having now, and we'll continue to have. I'm fine either way, but I just want to get a feel for what people want to do.
I think
I'm comfortable with just a conversation. Oh, that's fine too.
I would like to go down the list again.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Then I'll just ask, are there any other questions at the moment for the applicants? I mean, obviously they're not going to go away, but I may ask I probably will ask Rodney to send them back over to the other side while we do our deliberation. So any other questions that people have? If something occurs to you while we're deliberating, we'll bring them back over. Okay, so Commissioner Lapp.
This is more a question for Rodney. Now, the landscaping detail that comes in the final site plan as well. It's not required at this stage.
That is correct.
Okay.
The detailed landscape is all final site plan.
Thank you.
Anything else?
You do have in your packet, you do have the response from the Crystal Oil Company. It's dated June the 15th. That also provides some information that may be helpful as you're deliberating this. So, in terms of looking at some of the additional, looking at their responses to your comments from your June meeting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to then request that we transpose our applicants back over to the attendees side. Thank you for answering our questions. I think it was helpful.
Thank you.
Give me a moment here. We will move them back.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read the standards for special use approval, and what I'd ask you to do would be jump in if you have a particular comment or question. So first one, the proposed land use is identified in section 3 as a special use in the zoning district. That is true. Number 2A, the location, design, activities, processes, materials, equipment, and operational conditions of the special use will not be hazardous, detrimental, or injurious to the environment or the public health, safety, or general welfare by reasons of traffic. All right, so 2A is traffic. I know it was a key discussion factor last time. Any comments on that one? Commissioner Buckley?
Yeah, as it relates to traffic, I'm not sure that, I think the concern from last time, I think is still present. In fact, using the example of having a gas station kitty corner from the this proposed station, to me, I don't know that supports inclusion of another gas station. I think it's a disincentive. I'm not sure that based on the plot that anywhere we put it, put the access points both on Isabella and Pickard are going to be sufficient to us to not create potential congestion at the intersection. So my concerns with that remain unchanged with the actual traffic issues itself.
You do have the option if you feel you need additional information or additional analysis about traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer, neither is Peter, but if you feel you need a more detailed evaluation of that traffic issue, it's certainly something that you can request, and we can have someone take an expert, a traffic engineer, take a look at that from their perspective. We can also request information from MDOT related to their analysis, if that would be your preference.
Is that something, is requesting traffic information like that something that's incumbent upon the township itself, or is that something that would be incumbent upon the applicant to provide?
So this is an interesting question. You have the ability to ask the applicant for additional information. The applicant has provided information about traffic. I think that if we were to look at this issue in terms of having a detailed analysis, it would be something the township would need to take care of in this particular circumstance. The primary analysis here is made by MDOT. South Isabella is a county road commission road. but it's a lower traffic road. So the primary issue here is really with traffic on MDOT. I think that's been the focus of the discussion as well. And so MDOT certainly does its analysis related to where they allow driveways to go and what type of driveway configuration they allow. But beyond that, if we're looking more at the use of this site and traffic generated by it, I think that the township would need to hire an expert to do that. We certainly can. You have the right to have information you feel is necessary for your review and to be able to make an informed decision.
Well, at this point regarding traffic, I don't feel that I have that information. I don't feel that the applicant has provided that either. I know that they've cited the trip generation handbook 3rd edition, but I'm not sure that that necessarily gives us any unique insight as to what the specific traffic patterns are at that intersection in Mount Pleasant. It's simply citing some statistics that generally speak to the number of people that drive past a given type of convenience market and gas station. So if I'm making a decision today, I don't feel like we have that information in front of us that would tell us anything more about traffic than what we've already expressed concerns about.
So what I would suggest in terms of the process for any questions you have or additional information, as I said, that we don't have available to you tonight, would simply be to make that a motion and have the commission, as a body, decide whether this is information that's needed to be able to proceed forward on that.
And I apologize, I'm monopolizing time, and this will be my last comment on the actual traffic. But I do, as it relates to traffic, I do have a concern that we're being asked to recommend either approval or denial of a special use permit to the Board of Trustees at this date and time when we do not know if the County Road Commission will approve the access from Pickard in the way that it's currently presented on a preliminary site plan. And I do find that problematic, although I know that the process isn't necessarily conducive, but I find it problematic that we are considering approving approval or recommending approval or denial based on the hope that that is accurate and would receive approval by the Road Commission.
Can an approval be contingent on that?
Well, that is a final site plan requirement that they deal with the outside agencies and have those, that all outside agency permits or approvals are either in hand or the language of the standard for final site plan approval or assured of approval. So essentially they provided some written documentation that shows that the design of the site is acceptable, even if perhaps a performance bond or something has not yet been provided to allow them to issue a permit. You certainly could add it as a condition of the special use. What I will say is that that the Road Commission will approve an access off of South Isabella. That's simply the case. They based on the site configuration, the size of the site, the Road Commission will allow one access off of South Isabella Road. The exact location, the exact width of that access is something that the Road Commission would have to approve. The plans appear to be designed to meet their requirements. I don't expect a significant change based on a final Road Commission review and approval action. So you certainly can include it, but I do not expect a significant change from what you see on the plan in terms of that design.
Is that true of the way the entrance off of Pickard is also set up?
The access off of Pickard, as I said, I was kind of surprised to see a left-hand turn in off Pickard. But this is, as Mr. Quant said, this plan is designed based on their engineers' knowledge of MDOT requirements. And it is certainly possible to have a left-hand turn in. There are certain standards that have to be met. The design that is there, I think, maximizes safety. It moves the driveway as far away as possible from the intersection. It also, in both cases, for both roads, we're reducing the number of existing driveways significantly. Both sides, they're large swaths of Isabella is a driveway right now, sort of an undefined driveway. There are multiple driveway accesses on Pickard currently. So this would be a significant safety improvement to go down to one driveway off of each road.
Okay. Other comments from other commissioners on the traffic question? Anybody have any thoughts? No? Okay. All right. So we'll move on. So 2B, the location, design, activities, processes, materials, equipment, and operational conditions of the special use will not be hazardous, detrimental, or injurious to the environment or the public health, safety, or general welfare by reason of noise, vibration, dust, glare, or light. I know there was some concern expressed about the noise related to speakers at the pumps. The suggestion is that be one of the conditions is that of an approval would be that not be included as an option.
And their lights, I mean, their hours were till midnight, so they don't have lights going all night long. So I believe that can conform.
Ryan, you still have your hand up. Do you have a comment on this or no?
Yeah, I was just trying to scroll through. I thought that there was at least one residential concern about commercial filling next to residential, but I'm not seeing it as I scroll, so I haven't located it yet. But I didn't know. I was just trying to get to it, so I guess at this point, unless I find it,
I think one thing I recall was, and I think maybe this was during the public hearing, was us, and I think it's already been incorporated into the plan, was a robust fence or wall that would help to buffer sound. And possibly light as well.
Yeah, it's actually listed as one of the items in your draft set of motions as a potential condition was a decorative masonry wall shall be provided along the south and west sides of the paved area, along with landscaping to adequately buffer the adjacent residences. So that would be something that would be you would see as part of the final site plan if this was approved.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Lapp?
I think that Commissioner Buckley is thinking of the letter from Mr. Campbell on Bud Street. He comments on the backyard backing up to the commercial fueling area on the filling station kitty corner to this site. So I think that might be what he's thinking of.
Okay.
That was separately sent to us, I think, by Mr. Gallinat earlier today.
yeah, that's probably it. Yep.
Yeah, you could actually, in the pictures for that site, the last page is the picture of that site across the street, or kitty corner across the street, and you could actually kind of see that the area around that is just simply open. There's not any screening. The site that filling station site was developed many years ago, before our current ordinance standards. So there is no buffering, no screening, no wall, fence, or anything there for that marathon station. If they were to update that site and need site plan approval, we would take care of that with them. But right now, they're allowed to continue as is.
Okay. Any other comments on that topic? All right, then 2C, The location, design, activities, processes, materials, equipment, and operational conditions of the special use will not be hazardous, detrimental, or injurious to the environment or the public health, safety, or general welfare by reason of odors, dust, drainage, pollution, or other adverse impacts. Hearing no comments on that particular one, we'll move on. So the next one, number 3, the special use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained in a manner compatible with adjacent uses, the surrounding area, and the intent of the zoning district. Where determined necessary by the Planning Commission or Township Board, the applicant has provided adequately for any restrictions on hours or days of operation, minimization of noise, and screening improvements or other land use buffers to ensure land use compatibility and minimize adverse impacts. One thing I'll ask before we move to other comments, in this section, which is I'm reading from the Township staff report, you say that it's your opinion that no restrictions on hours or days of operation are warranted, but in the conditions in the sample motion, there are such restrictions. So I guess I'm just curious what that represents.
Well, that actually represents your direction. That was those conditions that are in that set of motions came from your discussion at the last meeting as items you were interested in potentially including in a motion. We certainly as staff have no objection to the condition. The comment is simply from the recognition that a filling station site near a limited access highway is going to be operating at all hours. That they don't operate between midnight and 6 is wonderful. It's a benefit, but there are certainly some that operate 24 hours a day.
Even in Chris Doyle's own comments, they said typical hours are 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. in their own response.
So hours for this section, so hours of operation would be one key, buffering and screening would be another. In terms of minimizing impacts on surrounding property owners and so on.
Items can be addressed on the final site plan, correct?
That is correct. That's where you would see the updated screening and yes, all those elements.
Okay.
Other comments or questions on this one? Number 4, the special use location and character is consistent with the general principles, goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted master plan. You heard the applicant's comment on that, but that's obviously something we need to consider as well. Commissioner Buckley?
I guess this is where, in the changes that we've had from our previous special use standards to these current standards, I know that the goal is to try to get, gather the same type of information. They're asked a little bit differently. And I believe that this particular portion is the section where we essentially is what gives us the greatest discretion as planning commissioners to decide whether or not this is consistent with our kind of view and vision of what we're trying to accomplish in our role as community planners. And so even though the staff response doesn't really touch on this, I guess this is where my objection is to, you know, coming down to the question of, is this something that we feel that our community needs or would benefit from in granting a special use? I'm still not quite there yet. The complaints, and I could be misinterpreting what we discussed last week, but the complaints about do we need another gas station or not, in my mind, had nothing to do with competition. I wouldn't stand in the way of somebody trying to open a business just because there's somebody else's business may suffer if they don't do it as well. You know, the question in my mind comes to, is there a sufficient need in a community the size of Mount Pleasant to put yet another gas station at a location where there are questions about traffic concerns and those sorts of things? And that, for me, this is the toughest one for me to get over. I know that the staff response here says that it conforms and it can conform, but this is the one section where we have the most discretion as commissioners to say we feel that this is something that fits our master plan or doesn't, and I'm not there on this one.
Other comments? All right, moving on. The proposed special use conforms to all applicable requirements or standards of this ordinance or other township ordinances.
We wouldn't know that till final site plan, correct?
Fully, certainly at this point, you have a plan before you, and that we have a separate preliminary site plan report that notes that there are some items that need to be dealt with, but they're all details that can be addressed through the final site plan process. This standard is certainly a chicken and egg element. You're right, but from the general perspective of can it conform, I think is really the key question. Is there sufficient land? Does the general layout conform? Those elements certainly can answer at this point.
So it can conform.
Other comments? Number 6, approval of the special use location will not result in a small residential or non-residential area being substantially surrounded by incompatible uses. Not seeing any disagreement with that statement. 7A, the impact of the special use will not exceed the existing or planned capacity of public or municipal services or infrastructure, including but not limited to fire protection services and municipal water and sewerage systems. Most likely the case. The impact of the special use will not exceed the existing or planned capacity of public or municipal services or infrastructure, including but not limited to roads, police, protection services, refuse disposal, other utilities, drainage facilities, and public or private wells. So that takes us potentially back to the issue of roads, traffic, but there are other items in there as well. people feel they've had their say on that already. And then lastly, the proposed use will not create additional requirements at public cost for services or infrastructure that will be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. Okay. So having completed the checklist, if you will, we can have further discussion. We can have a motion. Once again, you have three options, I guess I would say. One would be to recommend approval with conditions. Another would be recommend disapproval with stated reasons, findings. And a third would be postpone for reasons of, for example, further information. Commissioner LaBelle.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. One, I had a couple of residents or people that live locally reach out to me prior to last month's meeting to express, their concerns with potentially traffic, potentially why do we need another filling station? My feeling, and it seems like it's the same as most of the commissioners, that I don't think we can really make the call on whether our community needs another filling station. If it meets the criteria, it's something that would be able to pass or approved. But the traffic one definitely is a concern. However, if MDOT's got to make those necessary approvals, I would assume that it would be safe under their guidelines. So to me, it doesn't seem to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rodney, that even if we were to approve the special use, approve the preliminary site plan, the final site plan still got to come back in front of us. And if that doesn't pass, then none of this passes. Is that correct?
The final site plan approval is required for the project to be constructed. The site plan process is essentially, if they meet the way the ordinance is worded and the state law is worded, if they meet all of the zoning ordinance requirements that apply to the site plan, it must be approved. That's the language of the state law and our ordinance for site plan. So yes, as long as they meet all the requirements, the final site plan can be approved and go from there. But if they don't meet all the requirements, you have every right to say no, go back and try again. But all of those, like I said, it will be the zoning ordinance requirements that will set the stage for what needs to be on that final site plan.
Which is required for them to have the necessary permits and the necessary entities to sign off of them, such as MDOT.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Buckley.
Can we just clarify for the sake of the commission, since we are probably going to vote on this tonight, I certainly would be supportive of a postponement while we request some traffic information about that intersection, but I'm guessing that's postponement is probably a third on the list of what people would like to do. I'd just like to clarify that the planning commission does, in fact, this is why this is and please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but this is why this is a special use request, is that the planning commission does, in fact, have the discretion to say, we believe that this fits in our master plan and we believe that this is good and needed for our community or not. So I just wanted to clarify with Commissioner LaBelle, and for the sake of anybody that might be wondering, we do in fact, and my understanding is at least that we have, that's why this is a special use and not a use by right, is that we do get to at least converse about whether or not this fits our vision for our community planning.
At the beginning, it's page 61 of your packet. It's page 2 of our report, right up at the top. It quotes from the ordinance. The Planning Commission's recommendations should include, quote, affirmative findings of fact and records and records adequate data, information, and evidence to support a conclusion that the proposed special use conforms to each of these standards. And of course, one of the standards is that consistency with the master plan. So yes, it is absolutely the Planning Commission's role to make those determinations related to whether this project is consistent with the master plan or not. What I would suggest, if there were to be findings that it is not consistent with the master plan, that you reference specifically what in the master plan it's not consistent with. Of course, in our report, we noted several things that we found that the project was consistent with. And so in the same way, I would recommend that you be specific in any motion that would include findings that it's not consistent with the master plan, just so you can make as clear a case and a clear statement as possible related to that topic.
And that makes sense. I would still I would still make the argument that the Planning Commission has not been presented with a sufficient amount of information about traffic patterns so as to make an informed decision in, I believe it's item number, is it 2B? It was the one that I objected to originally, I guess. I'm trying to scroll through and find which actual of the 7 items it was.
Are you talking about the traffic item?
Yes, the traffic item.
That's referred to as 2A in our report.
2A, okay. I don't personally think that information, that we've been presented with information that satisfies my concerns, the Planning Commission's concerns, and the residential concerns, because all the voices that we've heard from the residents are traffic concerns. We haven't heard any supportive voices of this project, which isn't necessarily representative of the entire public's opinion on this project. But of what we have heard, it's been concerns about traffic. So I don't think we've been given that information. And if that means that it's incumbent upon the Planning Commission to request and secure that information, I have no problem making a motion to do so. But if we're making a decision tonight as to whether or not we recommend approval or denial, that information is not in hand.
Commissioner Lapp.
What kind of information do you think we need exactly? Because I think if Rodney needs to request some kind of traffic study, we need to give him more direction as to what exactly we're looking for. I did a search online on an accident database just to see comparatively within, a 2-month period in a given year, how many accidents were at this intersection versus Mission and Pickard and a couple of other intersections. And you would have to do a 10-year study probably to get any sense of what that means in any way. There's certainly a lot of accidents at this intersection, but there are a lot of accidents along Pickard in general. What kind of information do you think would be useful?
I'm not sure that accidents are the primary indicator here. I think it has more to do with flow and congestion. And we have a left-hand turn lane. We also, right on the existing plans from Pickard, we have an opportunity for somebody coming from the east to turn left into this immediately adjacent to a left-hand turn lane at the intersection. And so I don't know that it's necessarily about accidents as much as it is about the actual flow and the congestion that would be created from the existing businesses and the proposed business at that site. And in terms of what study or what type of, whether it's a consultant or who we gather that information from, I would leave that at Rodney's discretion. He certainly knows more about who we should ask for that type of analysis and the duration of the analysis and scope of the analysis, that sort of thing. But there's the response that we received from the applicant tonight has shed no additional light as to the traffic concerns that were raised. there's no additional light shed on that subject.
Commissioner LaBelle.
Yeah, just had a clarification question for you, Rodney. If take this particular applicant that's in front of us, if it can conform, if it does conform or can conform, and it meets all those criteria, and the commission I don't believe the commission just has the wherewithal to say, we don't feel like the community needs this, even though it's perfectly fitting of our master plan. So it fits with the master plan. It conforms to everything. That I don't think we can deny something like that just because we feel that the community doesn't need that. Is that correct or incorrect?
You have 7 criteria for a special use permit. The question you ask is not directly one of those criteria. So the answer certainly is I would not recommend that you base your decision solely on a determination that there are too many gas stations.
So my understanding is if we have a special use permit such as this one or something similar that comes in front of us that conforms already based on what you've presented in your report, or can conform, and it fits with our master plan, and we can't come up with one of the 7 criteria to deny it, to me, that's setting us up for a lawsuit. Am I mistaken?
Well, as I told the commission last month, and I know you weren't here last month, what I recommended that if you were to make a recommendation to deny the request for the special use permit, that you should include very specific findings of fact. The discussion last time started out with a very simple statement about traffic concerns. And I said that really is not a clear statement and a clear set of determinations. So you want to be as specific and as detailed and as thorough as possible if you were to make a motion to recommend denial, because as you said, anything, first of all, any decision can end up in court. It's just the nature of the beast. We should not fear a court action, but instead we should simply make a defensible decision. And a defensible decision to recommend denial would be one that's based on very specific findings and determinations. I think there's in the draft motion, and those items that are included there basically came out of the discussion from our last meeting. Include some of those. I would even recommend that it be more specific than that set.
Okay, yeah, you've answered my question. I appreciate it.
So I'm going to pop in here with a follow-up to that, and I feel as though we're getting a little bit away from the actual applicant at hand, and we're having a little bit of a conversation about special use permits. With all due respect to the staff, the Planning Commission itself can make its own decision about whether something conforms or doesn't. Admittedly, there's a finding of fact there. It's just because the staff says it conforms doesn't mean that the Planning Commission cannot come to a separate decision with justification, obviously. I think that's important to note. I think here, and maybe Rodney can provide some advice. I mean, if there's concerns expressed from planning commissioners as it relates to traffic patterns and traffic congestion by putting a high throughput type of business on a corner that already has two similar high throughput businesses on 2 of the other 3 corners, if there's concerns expressed by the Planning Commission and by residents, how much more detailed can we get, not being traffic civil engineers or traffic experts, how much more detailed can we get in terms of asking for additional information about that? I mean, obviously we can postpone this and await for that information to come, but is the Planning Commission obligated to make a recommendation then, or is the Planning Commission not permitted to recommend denial if that information cannot be provided, or if it's not provided today? it seems to me if there are legitimate concerns raised about traffic, then it seems to me that the planning commission should see those through.
I would say this, that traffic is something that is measurable, is subject to analysis. There are experts who that's what they do for a living. So I think if that is a concern that the Plan Commission finds significant enough to postpone action and request additional information, it's a very legitimate thing to ask for. And the township will seek out that expertise and request that analysis be done. It's certainly something to postpone action over. I would recommend that because that is something that we can analyze, that we can collect additional information for, that it not necessarily be a basis of a denial action tonight, only in that tonight it's based on a belief, and rather than facts you have in hand, that you have an analysis in hand that says X or says Y. There are certain things that are truly a judgment call. The master plan is one of them. Now, the master plan has policy language in it. It has a lot of policy language in it that relates to this site. We noted some some of the key ones in our report. There again, even though you are making a determination that is ultimately a judgment call, it should be, as you said, based or justified by referencing the policies in the master plan that you feel this does not conform to or is not consistent with. So with any decision you make, you should always back it up with, this is why we made it. Here are the things we found to be important. I've actually had cases where the Plan Commission actually made a separate motion that consisted only of findings and conclusions. That out of a long process, I've had a case that lasted, I think, four months. It was not a gas station, but it was a special use process. And in the end, the written record in the minutes out of that developed, I think there were 25 findings of fact that this planning commission ultimately decided were important to their case. And those findings of fact and conclusions, some of them were positive to the case, some were negative. And they actually made a motion ultimately that listed all of those. Just so they got them on the record in a motion that they all agreed that these were important, positive and negative. Then they ultimately took an action. So if you decide that's something you could do.
Yeah. And again, I apologize to the commission for monopolizing the conversation a little bit, but Rodney, if I had a traffic study that said, no, we think this is feasible, and I think that would certainly change my opinion on whether or not what the overall feasibility of this is. But I guess I'm curious for you, Rodney, if we were to make a motion to delay this, is it possible for you even to make a guess how long that would need to be delayed in order to gather some sort of finding of fact in this regard, in terms of what those traffic concerns, if there are traffic concerns, how long that might take for the township staff to accomplish that?
I don't know right offhand. I would suggest that you simply, if you were to make a motion to postpone and request that information, that it be postponed until the information is available. You could, you could postpone until your next meeting, and then we could update you at that meeting if the information is not yet available. That would be fine as well. So you keep it before you. But it could also be a motion simply to request the information and postpone it until that is available.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me interject a couple things at this point. I guess I just want to throw this out there and point out something. If you look at the B7 zone, restaurants with drive-throughs, bars, and a bunch of other what you might call high throughput businesses are uses by right in that zone. So, if this is not approved, then one of those other business, Burger King's competitor or whatever, could go on that spot. So anyway, so I just wanted to point that out. One other thing is the applicant's representative has had his hand up for a while. As you know, from the good old days, when we used to meet in person, if I saw that that was the case, I would sometimes ask the commission, do you want to entertain a further comment from the applicant? Sometimes they do offer either useful information or at least, I want to make sure that they feel like they've had their say. So I'll ask the commission, are you interested in and or willing to entertain a brief comment from the applicant at this juncture? Any objections? Okay, then I'll ask you to bring Mr. Quant back across brief, and we'll ask him for a brief comment. And in particular, if you have any information to impart, we certainly want to receive that.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to clarify something that is absolute black letter law to correct what Mr. Buckley had said, which is that if the applicant meets the special use permit criteria, then you must approve it. That is absolute black letter law. So if the criteria has been met and you already have something in your record that indicates that these criteria have been met, then it would be clearly reversible in the event that it's denied. But number two, and more importantly, with respect to the master plan, I cited the language that specifically comes from your master plan. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Buckley, this is not his his particular cup of tea. He doesn't want to see this here, but you have to follow the dictates of your master plan. Clearly, this meets all the zoning criteria for a B7 business. And the master plan specifically says that this type of activity is to be located in an area, and I'm going to read it again, quote, locations for this district are based on arterial road frontage and need for high traffic volumes, unquote. This is specifically designated for this particular type of use. And if you're going to use the master plan as a reason to deny it, then you need to find something that's more compelling than the specific language that comes from your master plan. Not just that, hey, I don't like it. It doesn't really seem to feel right, blah, blah, blah. You are setting yourself up for a potential problem. So just wanted to make sure that was clear. Also, Mr. Buckley said that there was absolutely nothing that was provided by the applicant that indicated that traffic had been addressed. Clearly, the fact that it meets best engineered practices, the ingress and egress points were moved to the farthest possible location, not in the location that's most convenient for the use of the business, but the farthest possible location to maximize potential traffic conflicts. And also, you can't just go to MDOT or the Road Commission and ask them a hypothetical. Will you grant, access points to this? If my client can't get, access granted by the regulatory officials, then this thing dies on its own. There's certainly nothing wrong with moving the process forward. And then if the condition that's clearly established is not met, then the applicant doesn't get an opportunity to move forward with their project. So there is already a safeguard that's in place. So I think that, with that being said, I just wanted to clarify those points because I think that there were clear misstatements that were made or misinterpretations of what the law requires.
Okay, thank you. And I'll ask Rodney to go ahead and move Mr. Quant back over to the other side. Thanks again. And I will recognize Commissioner Buckley. You're muted.
With all due respect to Mr. Quant, I think he has misinterpreted what I'm actually saying. In terms of black letter law and those sorts of things, I'm not using the master plan as a justification by saying somehow I don't want this. This has nothing to do with whether or not I want to see a gas station. My concern, as I've expressed, is that there were concerns expressed last month by the Planning Commission about traffic flow and congestion at this intersection. There are concerns that have been raised by residents nearby about traffic patterns and flow and congestion at this intersection. In the special use requirements, it asks us if, as a special use, if this was a use by right, it would be a use by right. We wouldn't be having a conversation about special use. Maybe that's unfortunate because there are high throughput businesses like a fast food chain that is a use by right, but we're still having the conversation. So if there are concerns expressed by planning commissioners and concerns expressed by local residents about traffic congestion, and traffic congestion is one of the criteria in our special use parameters that we must consider. What I am asking for, and I made it quite clear, I even said in my last comment, it would change my opinion about this project if we had more detail about what a traffic study would look like. I could feel as though I've satisfied the concerns of the commission and the concerns of the residents alike in recommending approval to the Board of Trustees for a special permit use here. Just because the applicant has changed where they might locate their entrance and exit points does not speak to the issue of the traffic congestion created on the corner. That's what a traffic study is for. So I think I'm beating a dead horse here, but Mr. Quant has misinterpreted what I was saying, and I need to set the record straight on that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Thering.
Hope I'm not getting too off. Talking about the master plan as a reason. If Mr. Kwan is correct in what he's saying, according to the letter of the law, if they meet the criteria, we have to give them the SUP. But in my mind, I would think the master plan would not want us to put similar businesses all right on top of each other. That wouldn't, to me, be the object of the master plan. For example, kitty corner, there's a gas station. It probably does not offer all the products that this one does. So that is a difference. But, you know, a few weeks ago, we had a Dollar General come through that's going to be yards away, that I'm sure would offer more products than this gas station. And next to that, there's a liquor store that probably offers, you know, so we have a lot of things that are potentially similar. And I'm just, if we as a planning commission felt, wow, we just got a lot of the same thing all within 30 yards of each other, 50 yards of each other, does that really work with the master plan? I'll be honest with you, I'm not really concerned with traffic. I don't know. Mr. Kwan did make a good point. I think Commissioner LaBelle did as well. If MDOT comes back through and says it just doesn't jive, it's a done deal. It doesn't matter, you know, whether we approved everything or not. So I'm just trying to be able to make a decision, and somebody's going to have to help me here if we feel that, wow, we just got a lot of the same thing, all right in the same stone throw away. Is that consistent with what the master plan would really want for an area that small? And Rodney, do you have anything that you could add to that?
Well, what I will say is this, is that well, first of all, with regards to Mr. Quant, what he's referring to is under the state law, if you as a planning commission determine, ultimately, quite frankly, in this case, it's a board of trustees, but let's put it in terms of your recommendation. If you as a planning commission determine that this project conforms to all 7 of those standards for special use permit approval, he is correct. The language of the state act says you must approve or recommend approval of special use permit. But it's only when you determine first that the project meets all 7 of those criteria. In this case, while he says what he says about our report does say that it can conform to certain ones. That doesn't mean it does conform. And, you know, obviously you could recommend something with conditions designed to ensure it conforms. The other thing I'll mention with regards to Mr. Kwan's comments is our staff report is what it is. It is a report from staff perspective, looking at this project and evaluating it. It is not a definitive statement. That is your role to make, and ultimately the Board of Trustees' role to make. All we do as staff is give you our counsel, as professionals related to what we see and what we find. You have every right to make a different determination if you choose, and that's why we try to give you as many tools as possible in looking at this from all perspectives. So so Mr. Quant can say what he wishes, but ultimately you have the right to make your own determinations, and the Board of Trustees does as well, based on the criteria in the ordinance that apply to a special use approval. As far as your question, oh my gosh, I apologize. I've run off in a rant. What was your question again, specifically?
Actually, that was good enough. I mean, it's a little bit to the right or left of what we're really looking at. I want to be able to, whatever decision we choose tonight, I want to be able to know, obviously I'll make the decision based on the information that's given. It doesn't, based on what Mr. Quant said, and I appreciate what your comment is, that it almost doesn't matter if we don't feel it complies with the master plan. Because I don't see how, and I'm not saying this fits what I'm saying right now with all these similar businesses real close together. I'm not saying that fits that criteria. I'm just saying there's a lot of similarities all within a few yards of each other.
I apologize for that. Had my senior moment there. I don't recall there being any criteria in the master plan that discusses a cluster of similar businesses in the commercial district. There are master plans where that is a policy statement that is made, where there's a policy statement made that we don't want to have, an overabundance of similar businesses in a quarter. We want policies related to variety or a certain mix of businesses in a specific area. That often comes in plans that focus in right on a specific neighborhood. Our master plan does not have any language like that, so there's not really a way to base a decision on a group of similar businesses on a specific master plan language, because it's simply not there in our document.
Thank you. That's exactly the answer that I guess I needed. Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you. Senator, Commissioner Shingles, promoted you.
I got a promotion as senator. Just a quick question, because obviously at our last meeting, we talked a lot about competition, and I think we landed on that can't be a criteria. And I think what Rodney just mentioned kind of underscores that there's nothing in our ordinance that says that business can be clustered together, and that's part of the competition factor. So are we at this point solely making our decision on the 7 criteria? Because we've talked about road congestion, we've talked about unfair competition, we talked about master plan compliance. So as we make our decision, is it solely on the 7 criteria that would support a special use permit?
That is your charge with regards to an application for special use permit approval, is to look at those 7 criteria. Yes.
Then if that's the case, we probably shouldn't be talking about anything else, correct? First
of all, those criteria do include traffic. They don't include competition type language, but you're right.
I understand, but we just keep getting in different domains, and I'm just trying to understand, because it's starting to get a little confusing. And I know within those 7 criteria, traffic would be. And I know there was lots of discussion about, should we be asking for data related to a traffic study? Because how could, I can drive down Pickard right now and there's no congestion, and my perception is I don't agree with you, but then I can go at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, it's a whole different dynamic. Those aren't, our perception can't be the standard. It has to be what's fact, I would think. We talk about, black letter law, and, I don't like to hear we must. That's, and if we must, then first of all, I think that's a matter of opinion for Mr. Kwan, but more importantly, what is our duty? And it sounds like the 7 criteria is what we need to focus on. Is that right? Am I?
That is correct.
That accurate? Okay.
Yes.
Then I suggest that maybe that's where we spend our time and dismiss all of the other irrelevant factors, because the 7 criteria in and of itself is going to create a lot of decision making on does it not, is it not, yes or no, and we'll be here until 11 o'clock again. So I hope we won't, but.
Okay. Well, we did go through those 7. Not everybody, I mean, some of them we didn't get too much comment on, but
yep.
Commissioner Fuller.
Yeah, just reading through the master plan again, that statement for the community commercial. Location for this district are based on arterial road frontages and the need for high traffic volumes with convenient and well-managed access. That's what it says. This project has high traffic volumes, which I'm sure a gas station wants, and the well-managed access is pushed all the way to the furthest points on the property that it can possibly to maintain a well-managed access. So I'm getting a little less hung up on the traffic issue. And I'm not opposed to a gas station on that corner. It hasn't been my stance by any means. So reading our master plan, I feel that it meets the community commercial statement.
Okay. Other comments from other commissioners? Commissioner Buckley.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just make a motion, see if it sticks. Let's make some progress here. I would ask the commissioners join me in doing our due diligence and gathering data about traffic, as is, I think, required with this type of intersection. I'm not creating a stance where I'm against a gas station. I just would like to see the data. So I'm going to make a motion to postpone action on PSUP 2102 special use permit application for the new Christ oil filling station on the southwest corner of East Pickard Road and South Isabella Road until I'd like to postpone it until the next meeting, so we can at least get an assessment for Rodney for what a traffic study may look like. And if there's a traffic study that can be accomplished in a time that we can debate it, I guess I'm getting into a justification now. That doesn't need to be in the motion, but that would be my motion. And if at that point in a month from now, based on Rodney's feedback, we get information that says either this is something that we can do expeditiously or not, then the planning commission can make a decision to disregard and either recommend or deny approval, at next month's meeting. But I'm going to at least throw the motion out there, see if there's any interest in it.
I'll support that.
So the motion that you heard to postpone this for 1 month pending further information from township staff on, I guess, the feasibility of a traffic study and what information we might be able to get from that was made by Buckley. It was seconded by Shingles. Can I ask, and so it's on the floor for discussion. Can I ask Rodney, do you have enough experience and information from just your training and background to be able to answer Brian's general question now in terms of the types of traffic studies that can be done, how long they take, what information we would get from them? If not, that's fine, but I'm just curious.
I will say this, I have an opinion. on what the study would likely show. But I would rather not share it. I don't particularly want to bias the Plan Commission either way. I would rather let the expert review it and see what comes.
How long do you think it would take to obtain that data?
Well, if this motion were to be adopted, we'll work tomorrow to reach out to folks with that expertise and find out. I really don't know at the moment. Certainly, there's a lot of development activity. I have no idea how busy people are. If I had to hazard a guess, I would expect that we could have an analysis back in your hands for the next meeting, but it would really just be a guess at this point.
Okay. Other discussion. Commissioner LaBelle.
Yeah, just quick question, Rodney. If an SUP, if we did approve it and we approved a site plan and it went to the final in front of the trustees and failed, does that mean the special use permit is still with the property, I would assume, or no?
Yes, if a special use permit is approved, it runs with the land, regardless of who the applicant is. So another filling station could come in and make use of that.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments on the motion? Ready to vote? Okay, then I'll ask for a roll call vote on this. So a yes vote is to postpone this action until the August meeting. Again, pending possible traffic data collection. A no vote would be to not postpone it.
Buckley,
Yes.
Squattrito,
No.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Thering,
No.
Fuller,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Darren,
No.
Lapp,
No.
LaBelle.
No.
All right, I have 4 yeses, 5 noes. Motion denied.
Yeah, motion fails. Okay. So Commissioner LaBelle.
Another question, Rodney, if someone were to make a motion to approve and it was to pass, are we able to put a condition in there that some study would be done in this meantime to keep things moving? Can we put a condition in there, like, I mean, making motion to approve right here, we've got with preliminary site plan, hours of operation, decorative masonry, could we add a fourth one saying providing a feasible traffic study?
At this point, it would be a recommendation to the board. So the board would help, Board of Trustees would ultimately have to decide if they were to agree with it. If they agree with it and adopted it, then yes, it would be a condition that would have to be met. But otherwise, it's a recommendation action. So until the Board of Trustees does something with it, they would not be something active, essentially.
Okay, yep, thank you.
So at this point, we can have further discussion. We can have a motion to recommend approval with conditions. We can have a motion to recommend disapproval with finding of fact. And we can have a motion to postpone for some other reason. Would anyone like to make a motion? Or does anyone have any more comments or questions? Haven't seen the commission this quiet and I don't know how long. Did y'all mute your turn on your mute buttons? Commissioner Lapp.
I'll break the silence. I guess I'm still really confused as to what a traffic study would be able to provide other than to show that there's a lot of traffic on Pickard and Isabella. I don't see how, I guess I don't see how more information at this point is going to help us understand what kind of business would best go on that corner when the business that we have right now is what it is. I guess that's not a very clear way of saying, but I don't understand why more information on traffic would help make a decision one way or another at this point. I still don't understand that, Ryan. I'm not sure if you can provide more information. Well, I still don't know what kind of information would we be looking for? I realize we're past that since that motion didn't pass, but what information are you looking for?
My expectation that a traffic study would analyze the type of traffic and traffic patterns that are going through currently, as well as provide some sort of insight into what an additional high throughput type of business like a gas station would, what type of additional pressure that would place on that intersection and on the traffic and or traffic congestion on that intersection. That's my expectation of what it would be. Rodney can disagree if he thinks that that's not data that would be captured. I'm not an expert on it.
Well, it certainly would look at existing conditions. It would look at the anticipated conditions based on the proposed use. Typically, that type of analysis would also look at what mitigation measures are necessary. If mitigation measures could be sufficient, first of all, to address any impacts that would happen, and then what those mitigation measures would be. This is often where you get things like acceleration lanes and deceleration lanes and changes to timing of the traffic lights, all those kinds of pieces of the puzzle. Location of driveways, number of driveways are all potential mitigation measures that, of course, in large part they have addressed in their updated site plan. But that typically would be the typical scope of a traffic impact study.
It would seem that they've attempted to mitigate that. I guess I view, and it seems as though the desire by the Planning Commission for additional analysis on traffic is dissipated to a certain extent based on the most recent vote. But it would seem to me that this is simply, I feel as though the Planning Commission, since every one of the public comments that we've had on this has been concerned with traffic, if it can be accomplished in a feasible time period to gain a finding of fact from an expert on traffic in order to justify the decision to recommend approval of this, it seems like a reasonable action for the Planning Commission.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
Does MDOT or the Isabella County Road Commission consider issues like mitigation in their approval of a site plan?
Well, they do have standards that are applied, and those they do have. They can and do often require certain mitigation. As I said, things like acceleration, deceleration lanes, limiting the driveway. In this case, the Pickard Road driveway is a right out only. You can't turn left onto Pickard Road. That is a restriction that MDOT apparently imposed, and would be a common one to prevent prevent issues related to traffic conflicts on M20. So yes, they absolutely can require various improvements if needed. to ensure that the use does not have an adverse impact on traffic.
Commissioner Lobel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in complete agreement with Commissioner Lapp that I think what specific items, I know we've talked about some generalized items of what may happen in a traffic study or what would be there, but I think, I mean, if they come back and say, yeah, we got this many cars going by, there's been this many accidents, not any different than, I mean, I guess what specific information would be enough information for the commissioners that voted no to go, or voted yes to postpone? I guess what information specifically would warrant enough to be, okay, yep, I feel I'm compelled to make a decision to deny or approve. I guess that's where I'm with Commissioner Lapp, is what is that information? So they do a study and, yeah, it's a busy intersection. Okay, well, we already know that. So I guess what constitutes being able to make that decision?
I would expect that there's a reason why people do traffic studies and why there are experts out there that do traffic studies that are not the road commission. The road commission has standards, but if the road commission did all of its due diligence and studies that were possible to do, then we wouldn't have consultants out there selling traffic studies. However, I would expect that anybody that we went to would provide some, not just this is how many cars go by, but some sort of insight or recommendation that said that based on traffic patterns and access, proposed access, existing access, those sorts of things, that this intersection should be able to accommodate or may not be able to accommodate the increased traffic flow. I wouldn't expect just some sort of blanket report that offers no expert guidance. There's no point in, I can sit out there and count cars going by. That doesn't do anything. I want expert guidance that says this can either accommodate or not accommodate based on our findings.
Yeah,
and I would expect that that's what somebody can do.
Yeah, and I think MDOT has the final say since it's their road.
MDOT has the final say on the access points to and from the roadway, absolutely. But that doesn't speak to the actual traffic patterns at that location or anything else. Those are two separate things.
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying if just looking at traffic patterns, how many lefts, how many rights, all that stuff, sure. You know, if we want to get a third party to do it, that's fine. My personal opinion is that information in the next 30 days, really, they're going to have it within the next 2 to 3 weeks, is not going to warrant enough information to make a decision, just my opinion, just based on prior experience.
Well, I haven't personally reviewed any traffic studies, so I'd be interested to see what a consultant said.
Commissioner Albrecht.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the actual structure and the building, I should say. I in my understanding, I was voting yes. Not that I have to justify why I voted yes, but thinking that some kind of study would help me better understand if there was different ways or different access points that would make the traffic flow easier and less congested. And that would help me sway that, yes, this is definitely a great idea here to help ease the already congested area. Like I said, it's not that I'm opposed to the specific, the site. It's just, I was, in terms of helping me better understand that study would help give me a better understanding of how individuals could navigate that easier to not make that a more congested area than it already is. But like I said, that doesn't have my, no, I'm not against the actual building and the station.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner LaBelle again.
Yeah, just a follow up to Commissioner Albrecht is yeah. So we've had, or myself and some other developers on Mission Street have had some experience with working with MDOT, working with the city, not the township, in some projects that we've had multiple access points on Mission Street. And to really make the project come to fruition, a number of those access points must be closed, or else MDOT wouldn't allow the project to go. I think based on my experience with a few of those projects on Mission Street, what's been proposed by the applicant correct me if I'm wrong, there's a total of, I think 7 or 8 access points, and they're going to come down to 2 total. I mean, that's enormous right there in effect from a safety aspect, because there's 1 access point on each road instead of, 3 or 4, however many that are currently there. I don't have the plan right in front of me at the moment, but I thought the recap or the summary was that it went from 7 or 8 access points down to 2. And to me, that is a huge increase in the safety and pretty clear on what the flow would need to be there. I think the concern from some of the commissioners, especially Commissioner Buckley, is that are those access points far enough away to accommodate the amount of traffic at that intersection? And I don't have any experience with semis and big trucks like that. I would assume, again, just an assumption, that if the applicant is proposing this, then they feel that that's enough room for them to do what they need to do there. But I think that would also be up to MDOT to allow that. But certainly a third-party study, if that's something that the township wants to pay for and do, or the applicant wants to pay for and do, sure, we could do that.
That's just what was proposed, but we voted it down.
I want to go to.
That's correct, because I don't really think it's necessary personally. That's why I voted no.
Mike's got his hand up and he hasn't had a chance to speak the whole evening, so I'm going to go to Commissioner Darren.
And you're muted, Mike.
He's got to unmute himself.
Thank you, Rodney. I did vote it down. But let me just say, if we're asking for a study, it's based on the new use. It's not on how many driveways we're eliminating. It's on the use. And I don't want to go back to last meeting. It just got way blown out of proportion. I want to clarify that the use is what's driving the safety concerns. They've talked about having commercial vehicles coming in there, not just deliveries, but the service and all that. I appreciate that they moved the driveways out as far as they can. I think that was showing that the client's willing to work with the township. But it comes down to, in the new use, is there going to be a safety concern with this corner? And I do believe there's people out there that do this all the time. It's not our client. The client wants to know how many people he's going to get in the store. He doesn't care that could be congested and all that. That's good business. We need somebody from a safety standpoint looking at it for safety concerns. And like I said, I voted it down, but I think we need to, when we're asking for this, it's not based on curb cuts. It's based on safety. So thank you,
Commissioner Darren. I think you have actually expressed it better than I did, but I'm in full agreement with what you just said. That is my contention, and that is my primary concern, exactly how you just articulated it.
Okay. Well, we're still where we were about 15 to 20 minutes ago, which is we can have a motion to recommend, we can have a motion to not recommend, we can have a motion to postpone. Rodney.
Just one quick comment. There's some comments made about the access points. Any study that would be done would not likely have any recommendation to alter the access to this site. At most, it might adjust the location of the Isabella access further away from the Isabella intersection, we have a local zoning ordinance requirement that pretty much pushes it to where it is right now or close to it. But any study is going to come back with cutting the number of access points down to one off of Pickard as far away from the intersection as possible, and one off of Isabella as far away from the intersection as possible, is really going to be the conclusion of any traffic study. The question really will become how much traffic is going to be generated by the proposed use, and what impact is it going to have on existing conditions, and then if it does have impacts, what are the mitigation measures that could address those impacts. But as I said, it will not impact the access points or the number of them in any significant manner.
If the planning commission is not in favor of postponing for a traffic study, would anyone on the planning commission be amenable to a recommendation that includes, as Commissioner LaBelle has suggested, that includes a recommendation that a traffic study be conducted, to at least give the Board of Trustees that information? Is there any interest? I'm curious as to why there's no new motions. So I guess, is there any interest in that? If there's, otherwise, I guess we're just waiting for a motion.
I wouldn't personally be opposed to that. Others?
All right, well then I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to recommend approval with conditions. I recommend to the Township Board of Trustees to approve the PSUP 2102 special use permit application for the new Christ oil filling station on approximately 2.6 acres of land on the southwest corner of East Pickard Road and South Isabella Road, in the northeast corner of section 14 and in the B7 retail and service highway business zoning district, finding that it can comply with section 14.3.j standards for special use approval, subject to the following conditions. 1, preliminary and final site plan approval by the Planning Commission. 2, the hours of operation shall be limited from 6 a.m. to midnight, and no loudspeakers or amplified music will be used outside the building as confirmed by the applicant. 3, a decorative masonry wall should be provided along the south and west sides of the paved area, along with required greenbelt buffered for evergreen and plantings adjacent to the lot boundaries to adequately buffer adjacent residences from visual noise impacts. And 4, that the Board of Trustees, in consideration of approval of this special use, also considers, in conjunction with their decision, the pursuit of a traffic study to ease the concerns of the Planning Commission and local residents. Only a recommendation that the Board of Trustees considers a traffic study in their approval process.
Is there a second to that motion? Motion was by Buckley. Is there a second?
I'll support.
Second by Fuller. Did you include the, I guess I was momentarily distracted. Did you include the hours of operation condition?
Yes, I included all 3,
Okay.
with the 4th one being the recommendation for a traffic study.
Okay. Further discussion on this motion. Motion is to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees with the 4 stated conditions. Ready to vote? All right, then I will ask for a roll call vote, please.
Aaron,
Yes.
Squatrito,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Lap,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Darren,
No.
Buckley,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 no. Motion
Okay,
carried.
That motion carried. Thank you. Okay. So having made that recommendation, then we also have the preliminary site plan. And so you have township staff report on that. So we'll move to updates from staff. Any updates? Anything you want to bring our attention to on the site plan that we haven't already discussed or that you want to remind us of?
So you do have our as you said, our report dated July 13th. The applicant did provide an updated site plan that addressed a significant number of the concerns and items that we had in our initial report that you reviewed in June. There are still some items that need to be addressed, but these are all items that can be addressed as part of the final site plan. The staff has no objection to a planning commission consideration of this preliminary site plan for conditional approval. And we simply recommend that any action be made contingent upon the conditions noted in the draft set of motions there that would address the items that we noted in our report, including that it be contingent upon board action on the special use permit.
Okay. Questions for Rodney at the moment? So did you say that we think we do have either, if not the actual engineer that created the plans, someone from that office is here?
Yes, would you like me to bring the group back across or?
Probably, yeah, I think so.
Okay, all right, I will take care of that. I believe on the as part of the phone, the group that was on the phone included representative of the engineering office.
Okay, I thought, okay, all right. Okay, so applicant and applicant's representatives are back over. So the site plan is open for questions and comments. Is there anything you want to say up front about the site plan that wasn't already said?
So,
No, sir.
No, but that's better. Maybe for some and not for others. But as you already noted, there were several issues that were of concern noted in the initial site plan review. We've tried to address all of those issues in the updated site plan. I think that we're 95% of the way there. I think that we meet all the zoning requirements with a few exceptions, and those exceptions can easily be handled as conditions for approval.
Okay. Gentleman on the phone, I think, started to speak. I don't know. I'm not sure who that is. So
this is John. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, sorry about that, sir. No, we're all set. Nothing else to add.
okay. All right. So again, the site plan is there. It's you know, we're considering it. We have, if anyone has questions, they should ask them. I guess one thing I'll ask up front, Rodney or Peter, one of you made a suggestion that if I understood it correctly, that the south end of the lot, where they've got an underground water storage area, and where they propose to use for basically for snow in the winter, doesn't need to be paved over. there's
So-
a suggestion that there should be less pavement.
That is correct. Yeah, certainly stormwater management and runoff from paved sites is always a challenge. The Chippewa River is our primary outlet for stormwater runoff, and it's a river that we'd like to keep in as good a condition as possible. Anytime there are opportunities to reduce the amount of runoff by reducing impervious surface, that is a good thing. In this case, it seemed kind of odd actually to use underground storage of stormwater runoff, but then put the snow on top of it essentially. Typically, what you would see in this kind of a format is you would see a situation where there is a surface basin, a detention basin, and snow would be plowed into the edge of it and then allowed to melt down into the basin and obviously then eventually run off. It just does the pavement on the south end of the site. First of all, some of it is going to have to go away to meet the requirements for screening and buffering. But more importantly than that, the applicant has provided no documentation to show any reason for that pavement to exist. It's not part of the required parking. It's not part of the traffic movement. It's not the location of any required elements of the filling station. So from that perspective, we have simply recommended that excess paving be removed to reduce the impervious surface. And frankly, they could eliminate the underground stormwater storage. There doesn't seem to be a reason for it when a surface basin could probably provide better filtering of stormwater and also provide a location for snow to be plowed into along the fringe of it during the winter months. So from that perspective, it seems like they do need to make some changes to that design.
Okay. And do we have someone here that can speak to the feasibility or openness to that suggestion or not?
I would leave that to our engineers.
Yeah, go ahead with it. So these underground storage tanks were just designed to help maximize the pervious surface, but go ahead, Mr. Chris. Yeah, I mean, that's an idea we had to maximize the absorption of stormwater and snow runoff, but I mean, it's absolutely no problem at all to put in a water detention area there, and we could line it with pervious materials such as heavy gravel so that it would speed up the absorption, so on and so forth, and we can make it look real nice in there. And our concern always is drainage, mosquitoes, things like that. But I mean, if that's what you guys want us to do, it's not a problem at all.
Commissioner Darren.
Yeah, last month we talked about entertaining commercial traffic onto this site for fueling. But there's also the commercial traffic for deliveries and all that. Can you speak to how you propose and actually how you propose those trucks are going to come in and leave this site?
Okay, this is Chris here. Generally, there's a stop and go light on Isabella, and the heavy trucks for our delivery purposes would come in off of Isabella Road and make deliveries to the store off of that, and then they would circle out and go out the opposite way out to the big highway. So they make a circle through for general delivery. Right.
So you're coming in
south down Isabella. So they come south down Isabella.
Coming in and going out on
right
Isabella?
in the site. Sir? Can you say it one more time?
So are you saying coming in on Isabella entrance and leaving on the Pickard Road exit?
That's correct. Heading east on Pickard. Yep. To 75. That's 75 right there.
27?
127. Yeah.
Commissioner Therick.
The trucks that are delivering the products to your store, do you have, is it your own supply, or trucking company that basically one truck comes in and has 85% of what you have in your store, or do you have several different trucks that will come in through the day? Now I understand, beverage, from the beverage trucks, that'll be a little bit different, but I mean, from the food items, do you have several different people come in, or is it just you have your own little deal where it comes in and takes care of about 85% of your store?
Yeah, I would say 85% of our deliveries are made with our own fleet. We've got a milk truck, we've got a grocery truck, we have a dry van that delivers. So there's about 3 deliveries with 3 separate trucks per week, and plus a fuel tanker that'll come in as needed to deliver gasoline, motor fuel.
How many other vendors do you anticipate coming in a week's time?
Well, we have like the pop companies, they'll come in, the potato chip companies. I think there's a sandwich company that comes in, but usually they're smaller type trucks.
So about we'll say another 7 vendors then. So probably approximately about 10 to 11 different types of delivery trucks in a week, every week.
Correct.
Okay.
Other questions and comments?
I'm wondering if it's possible to move that sidewalk along Isabella, away from Isabella, and provide an easement to get the pedestrians out away from the road.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir. So that sidewalk is more or less what's there now, with the exception that we took out the entrances off Isabella for that business that was there, and this basically connected the sidewalk there. So that's pretty much what you have there currently. Just to kind of blend it in as best we could.
So if the sidewalk were to be relocated further into the site, it would require them to still provide the landscaping strip that's required along that frontage at the width that's required. So it would require them to move their internal curb further into the site as well.
Okay.
We do have a general challenge in the county related to our county public roads, and that the road commission has not often acquired additional right-of-way. They've often simply widened the road out to the edge of the right-of-way. And so we see 4-lane roads within a 66-foot wide right-of-way, where there's just not much room outside of that space for things like sidewalks. And this is one of those cases.
When you have a condition on here, just loading the area as needed to conform, what is that applying to? What would make it conforming?
Yeah. So and I can bring up the site plan if we need, but yeah, if you look at the loading area, it's there on the west side of the building, in front of those parking spaces labeled 26 through 29. We don't necessarily have an objection to that configuration. It would not be blocking customer spaces. It conceivably be blocking employee spaces. But the issue is that it's not clear whether there is enough room to get by a truck on the outside of it there for traffic to pass through, to go, get around that truck and go through the site. That's what we're looking for. And it appears like there might be a need to make a little bit of adjustment in the arrangement to ensure that if a delivery vehicle is parked there, that people can pass by it without trouble.
Commissioner Darren.
Has there been any thought on moving the dumpster location to the man doors that it looks like the employees would use on the east end? There's really no door servicing the west end. And also, are most of your deliveries, I assume, utilizing door 2? And where do you plan to park those people when they're delivering?
Yes, sir. So per comments of last meeting, we moved it to the west side because of the comments we received back from I believe it was Mr. Glenn or Mr. Manny to shift it over, same thing to dumpster. That's why I was in location. Originally, it was closer to the east side where the doors were. But that's why I shifted over to the west side of the building. If that was the case, it probably would come through door 1. And then the other question you had, sir, was regards to how many deliveries I think you asked.
Not how many deliveries, but when they are delivering, they will predominantly use door 2, which is in the north corner of the east side, I assume, so that they can stock shelves. Where are you planning them to park when they're doing that?
Alongside the building,
Alongside the building where it says a loading area there between on the west side of the building. Or the back if no one is not hindering anybody.
You can see it on sheet 3 of the set. You'll see the site plan sheet. It shows that dotted line loading area on the west side of the building.
Working for a beverage company, I can tell you that they'll typically park along the outside edge to not block, if whenever possible, to never block any parking, kind of to get out of the way. Not that they wouldn't use that spot. If they're told to park there, they'll park there. But typically when they pull in, they'll pull up along the edge out of the way. Not block anything, and then they'll just, as they're wheeling their stuff in and out, they'll try to stay out of the way as much as possible.
One of the things that could be done here, if you look on that site plan sheet, you'll see the parking calculation up there, and they note a total requirement of 37 parking spaces per our ordinance. They have provided 43. It would not be hard at all for them to remove those 4 parking spaces. And quite frankly, to remove perhaps another one to relocate that dumpster and provide a dedicated loading zone on the side of the building where they would not be blocking parking and they would be out of the way. but that would require them to make an adjustment in terms of their total parking, the number of parking spaces. They might be able to pick up a few spaces somewhere else if they chose to. So it is certainly feasible within the bounds of the site they're working with to make the adjustments to meet the comments that we had about the loading zone, and to provide a loading zone that will work with their anticipated deliveries coming in.
I mean, I like that idea. If that's a viable concern, that there's not enough space to get by there, that seemed like a fairly easy fix, unless the applicant has some reasons why that may not.
Just a thought, another reason why I put that there is the chances that all 4 diesel pumps are being used at the same time, I didn't think was very likely. So with the thought being that someone could pass by either on pump number 33 or possibly on the outside of on pump 30 was my thinking on that and reasoning.
Yeah, that would not meet the ordinance requirement, though. There needs to be a dedicated ability to pass that site. And quite frankly, the loading area should not be blocking parking spaces, which is one of the comments we made.
One of the additional conditions, number 8, at the end of it, delete waiver request from sheet 02L01. And our packet doesn't have that sheet. I don't know if that even applies.
Yes, sir. We removed that. That was part of, again, of the revised preliminary site plan. We just figured we would make that part of the final site plan and address it at that point. So don't disregard the waiver request. That will be addressed in the final site plan.
So I would agree. That was a leftover from the previous review that was not caught. So you can, if you were to include the condition number 8, you can end with section 10 standards, period, and just delete the rest of that sentence.
Do they still have to provide overlapping evergreen screening since a part of their special use was a masonry wall?
It is part of their requirements related to screening in the zoning ordinance. Yes, so they should provide both elements.
Okay.
Other questions and comments? If not, we could have a motion. Anyone brave enough to want to read all that?
I will read it. I'll make the motion to approve with conditions. PR 2115 preliminary site plan for the new Chris Oil filling station on approximately 2.6 acres of land on the southwest corner of East Pickard Road and South Isabella Road in the northeast quarter of section 14 and in the B7 retail and service highway business zoning district, finding that the revised site plan dated May 17, 2021 can apply with the applicable zoning ordinance requirements for preliminary site plan approval, including section 14.2.p, required site plan information and 14.2.s standards for site plan approval, subject to the following conditions. Preliminary site plan approval is contingent upon Board of Trustees' final approval of PSUP2 2101 special use permit for the project, provided all items of required information on the final site plan per section 14.2.p. Provide the completed hazardous substance reporting form and Eagle permit checklist. Adjust the South Isabella Road driveway location as needed to conform to section 6.18 standard and reduce the extent of pavement on the south side of the site. Adjust the loading area as needed to conform to the township ordinance requirements and add internal sidewalks along the south side of the building. Add parapet wall on all 4 sides of the building with sufficient height to fully screen all rooftop HVAC equipment. Add an overlapping evergreen screen to the greenbelt planting around the south and west fork, south end of the west side of the site per section 10.2.e standards to provide adequate screening for adjacent residents. Provide at least the minimum number of greenbelt buffer tree and shrub plantings per section 10 standard.
Okay, that motion was made by Commissioner Fuller. Is there a second? I saw Thering as the second. All right. One brief thing, in condition number 1, I think there's an extra 2 in there. PSUP 221-01. I would just note that in the agenda, it's called PSUP 21-02.
Thank you.
So just double check make sure they're the same when it's printed in the minutes. So any discussion of the motion, Commissioner LaBelle?
Yeah, just a couple questions on item number 4. It just says standards and reduce the extent of pavement on the south side of the site. That seems pretty vague. I understand, I think we all know what we're talking about here, but do we need to put something more specific in there? And then do we want to add something about the loading zone and the parking spaces and the loading zone that's currently there? Or is that going to comply with some of these other things that are already in here? Those are just my 2 questions.
You certainly can be more specific related to the south side of the site and the stormwater detention, if you choose to be, and you also can be more specific related to the loading zone. They are required to address the items in our report to meet, including conflict with the parking spaces. So they're going to have to make a change on that west side related to the loading zone. But you absolutely can be more specific in your direction if you choose to be.
Well, and thanks for the explanation on the loading zone. If there's some other requirements that they have to abide by, then it doesn't need to be addressed in the motion. In regards to reduce the extent of the pavement, I mean, they could just take a foot off somewhere and that's reducing it. So I'm just wondering if we wanted to be more specific in what we're trying to convey to the applicant. Or in this case, the trustees as well.
Just a suggestion, would adding a parenthetical to that statement along the lines of consider replacing paved underground water storage areas with whatever you call those.
Surface detention basin.
Yeah, with unpaved surface detention basins, something like that.
You could simply add that as another condition if you choose to.
I think that would suffice any of the concerns that were mentioned in that discussion about that area.
Yeah, I can add item 9 to that motion to consider utilizing detention area in lieu of underground detention system on the south side.
You need the word consider or just utilize?
I don't know how much groundwater they're gonna store in a basin. I don't think they're gonna have enough space there myself. I would leave that up to the drain commissioner to review their calculations. I put a lot of these systems in and their size because they need to be that big.
Yeah, I don't know that we want to box them into a corner where they can't meet the approval by doing it that way.
Right.
I mean, as an alternative to that, you could also simply make a statement to reduce the amount of paved surface area to the minimum necessary for the operation. That's or maybe that's an addition to this, if you wish. So, it is a hard call because, as you said, we don't want to box them in on their design. But it does appear that they have excessive pavement on this site. And even the comments tonight, they really didn't address the reasons for all that pavement. All they did was say that they're using underground storage so they can maximize the amount of pavement. That doesn't seem to be conducive to minimizing the runoff and improving the quality of the runoff. So. But the language you have, that we can certainly work with the applicant and try to address these issues as best as possible, so that they're addressed on the final site plan.
Okay. Are you saying with the addition of number 9 that he just mentioned?
Yes, with that item, we can certainly work with the applicant to try to come up with a suitable solution.
Okay. Did all the commissioners hear what Alex suggested as condition number 9? Anybody need that read again? Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I would support that number 9 as well. Adding the number 9 condition.
All right. Are you ready to vote? Motion is to approve the preliminary site plan with the final one to come later with the stated conditions 1 through 9. So roll call, please.
Albrecht,
Sorry, yes.
Darren, I'm sorry.
Darren, yes.
Yeah. LaBelle,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Daring,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Lapp,
Yes.
Squatrito.
Yes.
All right, 9 yeses, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. So we'll see you all presumably again at final site plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. Thank you. This is Chris. Appreciate it. We'll be a good business neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the next item that I'm sure you're eager to move on to is the 50 pages of zoning ordinance amendments. which I know you've all studied assiduously and have thought about. Obviously, I don't guess we're going to get through all of that tonight, but how do you propose to let me ask Rodney, what was your, assuming the sun was still up and we were all still fresh, what was your assumption about how this was going to play out? Did you want to go through it step by step and invite comments, or?
My assumption was that you were going to immediately say, we're ready. We think this is great and have no changes and we're ready for a public hearing. Please forgive me for that moment, but no, my assumption was that I was expecting to have some questions and have some items that would generate discussion.
Mhm.
You know, in the little memo that comes along with it, the zoning ordinance amendment report, we highlighted some of the key changes, especially a couple of items that were not on the list that we provided you back in April that have kind of come up since then. And so just kind of hit on those items, but they certainly are not the only items that we could discuss. I think probably the best thing to do would be to simply start with answering any questions that commissioners have. We can jump around as much as we need to do that.
Okay. Well, let me start. Based on today and based on what we've just gone through, I guess I'd like to ask you just to tell me, is it more common that planning commissions have final authority over granting special use permits, or is the current system that we have where it's a recommendation to the elected body more common? Is there any tilt to that one way or the other?
It used to be that it was far more common for the elected board to have the final say on special use permits. It is actually not very common today. And the reason is frankly that planning commission members have far more opportunities to have training. There are far more opportunities to have professional advice, whether that be legal or planning or like myself. So it is most common that the planning commission has final authority over special use. When I came to the township, if you recall, I came to the township just a couple of weeks after Chris Dusen from McKenna Associates delivered the draft ordinance, and I noted that this was set up this way, and of course that the current ordinance is set up this way with Board of Trustees final approval. And as I looked at what I felt was important to make adjustments to, I did not feel this was an item to make an adjustment. So I left that issue alone at the time because we certainly were making a lot of other adjustments to the document. But ultimately, as I said, the benefit of having the Plan Commission have final say over a special use permit certainly streamlines the process, but it also helps to reduce the pressure on the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees, of course, are voted into office. They have because of that, by nature, a susceptibility to politics. In a controversial case, which special use permits can be, you as a planning commission can essentially make a more objective decision. That while certainly you listen to the residents, you listen to the comments, but ultimately you're not concerned in the way the elected officials are with the next election and how is my vote going to affect that. So it helps to insulate the Board of Trustees from that political challenge that comes in with a controversial issue where, if it meets all those criteria, it as was said, it must be approved. And so having the Planning Commission take that role on has that benefit as well. I think the biggest benefit, though, is really streamlining the process in terms of while still requiring that the same standards be met.
Mhm. Of course, one could turn that around and say that they're the ones who are accountable to the voters. But so if it were to be changed to what you're proposing, then in the unlikely event of a lawsuit, we would be the respondents, correct? As opposed to now where we're kind of, we make our recommendation and then we're not in the crossfire once the lawsuits start flying.
Oh, no, you're still in the crossfire. I assure you that you would be in the crossfire. No, the Plan Commission, you as a Plan Commission are insulated, in your role as a representative of the township. You are covered by that the legal protections. Certainly, I have seen cases where a developer that wants to be a bully sues planning commission members individually. It has happened, but the very first thing that the township attorney would do is to fight back against that and get that fixed. Because there's absolutely no reason why you would have any personal exposure for a decision that you made, as long as you are basically not committing malfeasance in office, which is a criminal act. Certainly if you commit a criminal act, you can expose yourself to personal jeopardy.
Mhm.
I did have a case in a community that I worked for as a consultant. This happened after my time with that community, where a planning commission chair had a personal vendetta against a local business owner. It was absolutely personal and it was ugly. And that planning commission chair, who also served as their zoning administrator in this very small community, he spent a decade making that business owner's life miserable and making sure that he could never get anything approved that he wanted to do. It resulted ultimately in a lawsuit that went to federal court, and that community lost, and they didn't just lose, they were stomped on. They lost because of and he personally lost because of his personal behavior. But that's a case of egregious criminal act, essentially. Beyond that, you are protected in your role as a commissioner, regardless of whether you're a recommending body or have final approval. There's really no difference there.
Okay. Commissioner Darren?
Based on what's happened to this commission over the last year or so, I think we need more training on the special use permit so that we understand when we're signing in these ordinances that now say it's permissible by special use permit, what we're really saying. Because just like Mr. Thering was saying tonight, I don't feel as though, well, he didn't say this, I'll surmise. I don't feel I'm representing the township like I was asked to do. I feel as though I got schooled tonight by a lawyer telling me what I can and cannot say. And then when we do say how we really feel based on the criteria that is provided to us, it's an argument. It is an argument on how we feel. And that's all we have as tools, is what we see, who we talk to, and what we bring from a personal standpoint to the table. And Ryan's right. We need information to make decisions if people aren't going to accept our word. Otherwise, why are we doing this? It can be done by you and Peter. You can go through and say, yep, that conforms, that doesn't conform. Because tonight, last month, I felt as though it was, this is how it is. And things getting taken out of context. Oh my goodness. That whole competitive thing, I don't know where that came from, but it is more to what Jim was saying tonight. And it's the blight that we have, and I think we should be worried about with unused buildings. Who's going to want to come in and invest with all these unused buildings? What does that tell people? Well, you're not selling stuff on that street or whatever. Again, you only use the knowledge that you have at hand. Some of us don't have a ton of knowledge. We look to the LaBelles and the Fullers who work in this town and can provide us information, but not always, especially in traffic counts, do we have that accessible to us. And so we make a judgment call that I still personally think it's going to be an unsafe corner. Do I have data? No. Is that lawyer from the last group going to argue it? Yep. But that is what is handed to us. So again, my whole point with that rant, we need some training on what the special use permit and how do we use these questions to protect the township when we feel it needs protecting. Sorry.
No, that's a good point. Commissioner Buckley.
I'd just like to echo those thoughts to a certain extent. Anybody that's been on the board for the commission for any period of time knows that Mr. Quant comes on and does tell us what we can and cannot do by law. And we have other folks that do come to our meetings and tell us what we can and cannot do by law. And then when we're looking at staff recommendations and a special use that says the staff is saying this conforms, I think there's certainly makes it difficult for a planning commissioner to speak their mind. And so I think it is important for us planning commissioner, all of our planning commissioners, to be able to speak their minds in a way that they're confident in doing so, that they understand how the law is or how the ordinance is supposed to be applied and what their right is in that process. Because I do think that it gets muddied by some of these factors. And the fact of the matter is that there are sometimes when we need information as planning commissioners, particularly if we are going to, at this point in time, I would not be in favor of giving the planning commission full authority to approve or deny, only from the standpoint of we can ask individual members for their insights, but all of us have a bias in some fashion, myself included. And so when there is a request for information about a particular thing that we might want from an outside source, I think it's reasonable. And I think it's also reasonable to use Rodney's advice that he gives us frequently, that there is no rush for us to act on any particular thing on any particular meeting. So it feels like it's always either an up or down vote today. So I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm not really in favor of changing it right now until myself included, our planning commissioners have more confidence and more understanding of their rights and how they can apply their interpretations of our master plan and of our criteria as they relate to the 7 pieces of criteria for the special use. Because otherwise I feel like we're just getting railroaded by a lawyer that steps in the room.
You know, I will say this, I'm certainly happy to put a training session together on these kinds of topics. From my observation, you've done excellent work on your special use permit reviews for this project and for the jail. You know, certainly there was vigorous discussion and deliberation, and frankly, there's much difference of opinion, but it was all done very respectfully. Mr. Quant can say whatever he wants, and he is representing his client. He's an advocate. He's not a impartial observer in any way. And he, as you said, he often does say, you must do it this way, but that's his opinion. And while he couches that in terms of the law, he is really often stating his opinion rather than a fact. And often his opinion is aimed in the direction of supporting his client, which is his job and his right to do in his role as an advocate for that client. But I would say overall, you did excellent work, both the jail project and this one, in dealing with kind of potentially controversial issue, dealing with one that had multiple variables and things to consider, and you went through them in very good order. So I would make sure to give yourself a pat on the back for that, because actually your work was very solid here. And I understand there's still very much a difference of opinion on the case, and that happens. Not every case is going to be unanimous one way or the other. But overall, like I said, your work was good. We certainly can do some training and help you understand and answer questions related to this and defensible decision making and those kinds of things. But I assure you, you've done excellent work as a commission on this project and the jail project.
Rodney, one follow-up to that, just a little bit more germane to the discussion. I'm curious if you have any sense of how often the trustees, if which I don't recall, how often the trustees have gone against the recommendation of the Planning Commission on special uses in the past. Is that, do we have a sense of? My recollection and my memory is that essentially what we recommend is what's usually adopted.
Well, I guess, Peter, if I could impose on you, you have a better sense of the history. What are your thoughts?
I can think of one time where the planning commission and the board of trustees differed. Outside of that one time, I'm pretty sure both the planning commission and the board of trustees have been on the same page. They may have differed in past as far as what kind of conditions that they want to put on an approval, but I'm pretty sure outside of just one time that I can think of, it's been unanimous.
Thank you, Peter.
Questions and comments from folks? Again, we'll end up carrying this over to our next meeting. I wanted to ask a couple quick questions. You made some changes to the master table in part 3 about the you know, what's allowed in what district and so on. I just have 2 that I want to ask about. Why would agricultural processing and packaging not be allowed in the agricultural district?
Well, this is you know, essentially an industrial activity. I suppose there is a limited component of it that could be essentially, if you had a fruit farm, for example, and you were simply gathering flats of blueberries or strawberries or something, that you could have a packaging element that is a very low key. But for the most part, this is a pretty significant industrial activity. We could add it to the agricultural district and include some standards that kind of addressed the requiring it to be a low key or a smaller scale activity. I certainly have no objection to doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I read the definition, agricultural service, well, actually, oh, you do have agricultural service establishment as a special use. Okay. All right. And then the other one was hospitals and hospitality facility. In the B4, the hospital itself is a special use, but the hospitality facility is a use by right. I was just wondering why those would be different.
Well, that was just taken from the existing ordinance and carried over.
Well, the S is underlined, so it looks new to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, for the hospitality facility, that we didn't make a change to what was there. The hospitality facility is, based on the definition, is somewhat along the lines of a Ronald McDonald House. So something similar to a hotel or a facility like that.
Yeah.
So the only reason I think the hospital was a special use in the B4 is the B4 district tends to be more on the fringe of the commercial area, closer to, it's not always the case, but closer to residences. But it seemed like it was a better choice there.
One of our main hospitals in town is in a residential area, but
that is true in the city. It is what it is. I don't have any objection to making that a permitted use by right either. That's exactly why we go through this.
All right. Well, obviously, we're going to have to spend the time to go through that, and I don't know that probably most of us don't have the stomach or the will to go through that now. But are there any other pressing questions that anyone wants to ask Rodney or Peter at this point, or any comments that anyone would want to make?
Phil, I'd just add on to your question about the agricultural in the industrial agricultural processing and industrial. I would be supportive of Rodney's at least proposal of some sort of language that would allow for small cottage industry type whether it's organic. So the example that he used with maybe low intensity uses like fruit picking, or I don't know, some sort of small sales like that. It would be nice to have some sort of exclusion that allowed them to operate within the agricultural community, or perhaps on the farm on which they are growing their produce or product. I don't know what the cutoff is for that, or how you, but I'm sure Rodney could propose something at least.
Yeah, I think it may be, you might want to go back and look at as well, very early in the document, actually on the first page of the document, the definition of agricultural service establishment kind of captures a lot of what you just mentioned.
Okay.
So it might be
sufficiently addressed.
It might be.
Okay.
Others? Well, let me just ask this. How is the August agenda looking? Any ideas? I guess what I'm really asking is, do you think at this moment that we're going to need a special meeting to tackle this issue based on both its urgency or not urgency and what you see coming down the pipeline? Because we had one scheduled for in this month and we ended up canceling it. So do we need to think about that again?
So at this point, we have 2 site plan applications that are already in, well, actually one's in and the other one's about to be in, that are aimed at the August agenda. There is still time for others. So I can think of at least one more that could conceivably end up on that agenda if it were to come in. If you have a special meeting, you certainly can devote the time to this. So if that's something that's of interest, we can put together a doodle poll with some dates and see if there's a date that we can have a good group of people to participate in. I'm happy to do it if you'd like to pursue that.
Well, I worry that with something this important and weighty, that trying to squeeze it in to meetings, you can look at an agenda and say, that's going to work. It's going to be, we're going to get, that's what I thought on this one, but then I didn't anticipate, and it, perfectly fine that we had the discussion. It was an important discussion to have, but we might need it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to at least conducting the doodle poll so we at least see what the roadmap is. I don't know that we've had extra meetings in August before. That's probably a tough time of year to try to schedule them. So we'll have to see.
All right. Well, we'll put together a poll and see what comes of it.
Okay. So I'm guessing that there are no other urgent comments on this topic, but are there any at the moment? Any other questions or comments?
I don't have a question specifically. I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand on this topic, but I know that there was mention of maybe having a quick conversation about how long we would continue to do remote versus in-person meetings.
Yeah, I think that's probably okay moment to bring that in, because all we've got left is comments. So I'm assuming that if this group wanted to, we could go back to having face-to-face meetings. Is that accurate?
The Board of Trustees is having their first one. I think, assuming that no disasters happen associated with that, then yes, if the Planning Commission chose, you could come back to in-person meetings.
So I think it's really up to the commission. If you guys, I'm not. And do you know, are all the trustees planning on attending in person?
I believe so. There's not any provision for an electronic access. So.
Oh, there's none. Okay.
No.
So they've just gone back completely to face-to-face.
That's what they've elected to do for this meeting. Yeah.
So give me your opinions. How do you feel about that, Commissioner Darren?
Can I ask, what are the restrictions with being in person? Are you still pushing the mask and 6 feet apart and all that?
No, the township COVID response plan no longer requires masks and does not require 6 foot separation. It does ask you to wash your hands and be respectful. And I think there's some language in there about people can wear masks if they choose, and we still provide masks for anybody that would need one. Visitors, employees, and commissioners, all included in that. So if we, the one challenge we have is with electronic access, is that the setup in the township hall is not conducive to do what I would call a hybrid meeting, where somebody might attend electronically. There's just not a way to work all that together. So if we're going back in person, it would be expected that everybody would be in person.
Okay. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
good. Well, go ahead.
Mr. LaBelle?
Yeah, I would completely support going back to in-person meetings.
Is there anyone with concerns about doing that? I assume that means, public hearings, everybody's coming in and they're sitting there and they're all shoulder to shoulder and all that.
That is correct at this point. If we had,
I'm sorry.
if the Commission on Aging building is becoming open again, the County Board of Commissioners is going to hold a meeting there as their first in-person meeting. I don't think it's actually open fully to where we could make use of that space for hearing, but I expect it probably will be shortly, especially if they have a good experience with their meeting. So if we had a big agenda item, we could arrange to have the hearing there.
Yeah. Has the township invested in any modifications to the air filtration system?
No.
Okay.
No.
I do like accessing remotely because I don't have to be sitting at my house. If I'm out of town and want to sign in, I can do it from wherever. So this has its advantages.
Now this will end. We have we're operating under the Open Meetings Act that allows for this option through December 31st, as long as there is a declaration of an emergency. And right now, the County Board of Commissioners, we're operating under their declaration of an emergency situation. They have not indicated any interest in rescinding that declaration. I expect they probably won't until the end of the year at this point. But they could, and if they did rescind it, the township would either have to adopt our own, or at that point we would be done with electronic meetings. So under that declaration and under the Open Meetings Act, we can continue to meet electronically for any reason through December 31st.
Yeah. My guess is that there's another wave coming, and it's just south and west of us here right now, but it's going to come. And with only about half the county vaccinated, it's probably going to be significant, in which case we'll probably end up back online at some point again anyway. But if for old time's sake you want to squeeze in a face-to-face meeting or two, over the summer, that might be an opportunity to do it. Commissioner Lapp.
Will there be candy if it's face-to-face? I heard that there was candy in the past.
So that was a Jill. I assumed it was a Jill thing. So that's probably a question for Tara. There probably haven't enough people in and out of the office. You probably haven't started buying candy again.
There is a lot of people coming in and out, and one of the guests did ask about the candy, but it hasn't been put back out.
Yeah.
Because of the COVID.
Yeah.
I personally don't see where there's a problem is wrapped candy, so. But yeah, we haven't put it out.
Okay. So what's your pleasure? Do you want to take the plunge and schedule August? August meeting is going to be, the regular August meeting is the 17th. Does anybody know that they're definitely not going to be around and would have to would only be able to attend remotely?
I may not be available. I'm not sure yet, but it wouldn't matter. I mean, that part of it wouldn't matter.
All right.
Now, we certainly can include this as an agenda item on a future agenda to have a broader discussion of the topic if you'd like. Obviously, this is going to sort of brought up on the spur of the moment.
Well, are you saying you think that we should take a formal action to reinstitute face-to-face meetings and that it should be an agenda item, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I'm saying that this is not something on your agenda for action. You certainly can, provide, if you provided direction to staff and said, we want to meet in person, you made a motion to that effect, we would pursue it. But it's also something that, as Commissioner Darren mentioned, he has a preference. There may be others that have a preference. It might be worth simply having an item on the agenda where people can be prepared and essentially, a complete discussion can take place on the topic.
Yeah. Well, I'm even, who knows, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, things could be different to the point where people get skittish again and don't really want to do it. So maybe probably the safest thing is to continue and do it this way for the time being.
Understanding that the order is going to run out at some point anyways, it does. I'll admit it provides a level of flexibility for those who are trying to enjoy a very brief Michigan summer, to be able to log in from any location and do it. And that's obviously not the main purpose of having online meetings, but it certainly is a benefit. And I know we're all going back there at some point anyways. So I have no problem staying online for the time being.
I'm not opposed to that either. I kind of like it as well, but in person would be fine as well.
Right. I wouldn't fight in person, but I also will, if given the opportunity, I will milk every last bit of enjoyment of being able to attend a meeting either from my home or from a cabin. So yeah.
Understandable.
You said a cabin, not the cabin, right?
Right, not the cabin.
All right. Okay. So I'm not hearing anyone pounding the table to meet in person. So we'll continue in this vein for the time being, and we'll you can put it on the August agenda. If we get to it, we get to it. All right. So very quickly, we'll set records. Extended public comment portion of the meeting where individuals are invited to address the Planning Commission on any item, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not. If you want to address the commission, hit the raise hand button. We'll facilitate your comment. Just give us your name and address for the minutes. Limit your comments to 5 minutes. Extended public comment is open at 10:13. We have no attendees. Extended public comment is closed. Final board comment. Any final comments from board members? Commissioner Thering.
I appreciate what Mike said, and I would absolutely support some additional training on the SUP. Definitely not intimidated by Mr. Quant, but I don't like somebody telling me. And Stan kind of alluded to that a little bit. It is what it is. If that's what we have to do, so be it. But I really didn't know the answer to that. So I did hold back a little bit. And so I would appreciate, Rodney, anything that you put together. I would absolutely be happy to attend. So Mike, thank you for stepping up and mentioning that.
Okay, thank you. Those can be done electronically too. I attended all the trainings this year have been electronic as far as I know.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, then I'm going to say that we've completed our agenda and we stand in adjournment, and we will send out an email relatively soon on a doodle poll for special meeting dates. And once the township decides what dates are available, we'll send that out. So please respond and we'll go from there. So thank everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.